Okay, everyone. For the ninth video in our Python in 1 hour series, we are going to learn about for loops. We just learned about while loops. For loops are probably a more common type of loop that you'll see people use a bit more often because it's less likely to get you in a situation where you have an infinite loop like we discussed before. Just because you're typically defining while you're creating the loop the set of iterations you're going to do, and it's usually not an infinite number. So let me just go ahead and show you the format. So we start it with the keyword for, and then you will give a variable of any kind, but let's just write I in is the other keyword. And then the next thing we got to do is give it something to loop through. So this is what I was talking about predefining what we're iterating through beforehand. So we can go ahead and give it a name like James. This is a string, obviously. And why don't I change I to, yeah, I is fine for now. For I in James, we're going to print I. Let's do run JAMES. And this can really be anything. It doesn't have to be I. It can be anything you want. So let's do char for character. Prints the same thing again. Char. For chart and char. Char. Okay, so you can see that that works. It doesn't really matter what you call this. You can call it anything you want. You can call it xylophone. As long as when you use it later, it's the same. Okay. So next, I'm going to show you what you'll probably see a bit more common, which is iterating through a list. Now, we haven't covered lists yet, but this is a good sort of just brief introduction to them. So a list is just with two square brackets. It's a different data type. And in a list, you can kind of put whatever you want, and then those items will be separated by commas. But let's go ahead and just write 1, 3, 5. And I'm going to change this from xylophone to item because that is much more descriptive. So for each item in our list, we're going to print the item. And so you can see that the for loop uses the variable we create here, this temporary variable, to represent each item within the list in this case, and then do something with it. So these are numbers, so I can go ahead and multiply them. 2, 6, 10. And what the for loop allows is it allows you to you can do whatever you want as you're looping through. I could even just print my name for each item in here. James, James, James. So what we're doing is for each item in this list, we're printing James. Pretty stupid. You wouldn't do that probably very often, but you can see that it is pretty powerful and you can do a lot with it. You can ask it to do anything on each iteration. The last thing I want to teach you about is range, and this is actually another data type, but we use ranges to create essentially a list of numbers. So let's go ahead and say range, and we'll do the first thing you give it is where you're going to start. So let's start at 1, and then the last bit is where it stops. And it's actually it's a bit confusing. It's the number it stops before. So if I want to count from 1 to 10, then I have to give it 11. So from range 1, where we start, to 11, which is the stopping point, we are going to print, let's just print the item. Great. And you can see that it starts at 1 and ends at 10. So what if I move this to, If I want it to print to 15, then I would use 16 as the stopping point. And let's say we want to start at 0. Let's create this range, 0 to 15. Great. So this is a for loop. You can do so much with it, but that is sort of an introduction to how they work.